a mortgage plan scenario with you today based on the market where we're at. So if you're looking for a home or planning to look for a home in the market where we are today, one thing that you may need to consider is, what if the home doesn't appraise for what I'm willing to pay for? And so that's what we're going to look at today, is what would be my mortgage options if the value did not support what the offer that I put in. Because if you put in an offer in this scenario at $530,000, you agreed to pay $530,000 for the home. Unless you have some clause or put in some verbiage, you still are planning on paying for the home $530,000. But if the value were to come in less, on a lending side, we can only lend on the lower of purchase price or appraised value. So what does that mean and what does that look like? That's what we're going to look at today. So in this first scenario here, you can see this is assuming that you put in a $530,000 offer. It was accepted. We went over mortgage terms. You planned on putting 10% down. So, of course, these are not your interest rates, not guaranteed to lend. We need to look at your specific options for you. So reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you with those numbers. This is just so you have the concept of some opportunities and strategies that we can explore. So $530,000, putting 10% down, 30-year fixed rate mortgage, roughly your payment's going to be around $27.35, including the estimated property taxes and insurance. Now, if you're putting 10% down and we're including the taxes and insurance in your payment, roughly you're going to need about $62,000 out of pocket for the down payment and closing costs. Of course, we'll go over specific to you what that looks like. Now, let's say that the appraisal comes in and it only comes in at $510,000. So what does that mean? If the value came in at $510,000, we can only lend on $510,000 as the structure of your financing. But what does this mean to you? So if you're already planning, you're paying $530,000, you're planning to come out of pocket with the $62,000, we have to readjust the way that your financing is. But what does this mean to you? In this scenario, it just means that your payment would go from $27.35 to roughly $27.45. The reason why is that your loan to value, which means you put 10% down, now you have a 90% loan to what the purchase price at $530 was. Now, if the value came in at $510 and we have to use the lower of purchase price or appraised value, your loan to value is higher now than the 90%. So that means that the mortgage insurance premium has to adjust, which is going to go up. So what that means to you is that your payment's going to go up. So in this scenario, you wouldn't have to come out of pocket with the additional $20,000. Your payment just goes up slightly. Now, if we look at another scenario and say, what if it comes in lower? So what if it comes in at $500,000? What does that look like for me? Well, as you can see here, your out-of-pocket still stays the same. Again, the mortgage insurance is what's going to adjust. So that means that your payment's going to adjust. So as you can see here, your payment's going to adjust here, which means your payment's going to go up slightly. So in all of these scenarios, what it means is that there are mortgage options available to you based on whatever your structure is most of the time. Now, if you're putting just the minimum down, you don't have as many options, and that's where we need to talk about a contingency plan, whether you do bridge the gap, which means whatever the difference from the appraised value to the purchase price, you may need to come in with the funds in order to proceed with the transaction. So you want to talk with your real estate agent and make sure you talk about contingencies and how the contract's framed. If you're putting more than the minimum down, then we may be able to do these things where you could see here that your payment doesn't adjust much. You may not have to come out of pocket with any more money depending on what the gap is. So not something to be too fearful about. I want to make sure that you know that there's mortgage options and we can work on the strategies if this were to happen. And this is the reality of the market right now. The other question that you want to consider is, does it make sense for me to purchase this home if the value comes in lower than what I'm willing to offer? That's where I would encourage you to watch my bid over ask. What if my appraisal comes in low? And what that means is that if you put in a bid over what the asking is or your appraisal comes in low, does it make sense to continue to purchase the home? What we need to look at is the data. I'm all about data. And so we need to look at the historical as well as the forecasted numbers for what is the rate of appreciation look like? What are interest rates doing? So in this scenario, if we look at the historical data and the forecasted data of what appreciation is doing, that means that if you were to purchase this home, and let's say you purchased it for $20,000 or $30,000 more than what it appraised for, how long is it going to take you to recover that? Much time in the principal or the appreciation is that going to take for you to recover, and does it make sense? So typically in this type of scenario, it would take you maybe 1 to 2 years in appreciation, maybe even less, for you to make back that gap. So would it make sense? Absolutely, in that scenario, it would make sense because the likelihood that you're going to keep that property for 2 years and the appreciation is high. Now, if it was a strategy where you're at a huge gap and it's going to take you 5+ years for you to make back that based on appreciation, it may not make sense unless you really want this home and you plan to stay there forever, because you're kind of putting yourself in a housing bubble. So it's really important to look at the numbers. How long is it going to take me to make back this difference? And does it make sense? And am I going to make it back in a reasonable amount of time? And I'm happy to go over those numbers with you and show you what that looks like. So reach out to me if you need those numbers. This numbers as far as what the numbers look like if the appraisal comes in low. It's really important that you understand these strategies as you're going into the housing market, putting in offers, and especially if you have an accepted offer, knowing what it is that you're looking at. The biggest thing is we want to eliminate as much fear by having the education and strategies available so that you can be successful. My purpose is to provide those education and strategies so that you can make good decisions for you and your family moving forward. I'm happy to help. Kristen Cooper, your mortgage planning specialist.